Well, good evening. My name is Benjamin Chong, and on behalf of the Founder Institute, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's event. This is a very exciting night because we are going to be graduating a whole bunch of founders who have taken part in the very first program of Founder Institute in 2023. We're also going to be explaining a little bit about the Founder Institute to those who are joining and are interested in learning more about the Founder Institute. So that's you, welcome. I also know today we have some guests of founders. So welcome as we get together and celebrate the achievements of the amazing founders. We also have some wonderful keynotes. We are thrilled today to have Dylan McDonnell, who is a graduate of Founder Institute, and he has a business called Foodini, which I'm sure he'll tell you about. We also have the amazing Harshu Deshpande from Google, who has a wealth of experience in taking ventures, seeing them grow and scale, and he'll be giving us our second keynote as the evening proceeds. As you might know, the Founder Institute is a worldwide network of mentors who help founders build meaningful and enduring technology companies. The Founder Institute has presence in over 150 cities around the world and has been in existence for a little over 10 years. I am fortunate to have been involved with the Founder Institute since its inception in Australia in 2011. We ran our very first program in the beginning of 2012. I've had the privilege of working with some amazing mentors who've had experience in building, scaling startups. They've also had experience in startups that haven't quite worked. And that's been very beneficial for founders because knowing what works and also what perhaps doesn't work is good information for those of us who are wanting to start our first or our second startup. Good to know what to avoid. And one of the founders who has taken part in the program is a gentleman called Dylan McDonnell. Dylan, when he came to the program, was very interested about food. In particular, he was very interested about the particular dietary requirements of people. And as we know, over the last 20 years, more people have become vegan, more people have become vegetarian, more people have discovered that their body system gets upset by perhaps soy or lactose or celiac disease. And what Dylan was able to do is come up with a business called Foodini to help those of us when we go to different restaurants or cafes or eateries to know whether we are safe in eating their food. So it's a fascinating business. And what Dylan's been able to do in that time is team up with other people in the Founder Institute, and maybe he'll tell us a little bit about his co-founder in the business. He's also been able to raise money for this business. And when I last spoke with Dylan, he was in the US meeting with various investors, attending different shows and so on. So really keen to hear from Dylan.
My accent betrays my Irish heritage. I moved to Sydney about 4 years ago. At the time, I was a corporate lawyer. Investment funds was my specialty, and that was the life I led prior to jumping into startup world. Actually really did start with the Founder Institute, quite literally, in that I had an idea. I think I had a business plan and not a whole lot else when I applied for the accelerator program with the Founder Institute. And to kind of set the context on why I did that, there was two main reasons. One was that my network in Australia was quite limited. I was a lawyer, but I had moved here relatively recently. I didn't know a lot of people and I didn't have a lot of startup experience. So that was kind of the first big thing. And the second aspect was, you know, you have an idea, you think it's good, but you can't really beat stress testing it against, you know, a lot of people who have done this before and know their stuff. So that was the reason I went into it. And just as Ben mentioned, Foodini is a platform that helps connect people with, you know, up to 50 different dietary needs to venues and menus that are suitable for them. And we also leverage a team of dietitians to ensure the information is accurate. We've 9,000 venues currently on the platform in Australia. I think we're just over 35,000 active users, which is great as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at as of today. But when we went into the Founder Institute, it was a very different, I would say, product. I think at the time there was a delivery component. There was, I think we were catering maybe for 4 or 5 diets and allergens. And for me, I think the real value was in weekly, just getting people who really knew their stuff, really stress testing and poking holes in what we're doing. And again, that constructive feedback, you cannot put a price on it. Like, the last thing you need people doing is tapping your back every week and saying, oh, that's great. Like, you need people constructively saying, listen, I think, what you're doing is you're on the right track, but have you thought about this? And I think it took me about 6 weeks before I realized that every week people were questioning the delivery aspect and they were essentially making the very valid point in hindsight around, if you're going to go down delivery, you're competing with Uber Eats and Deliveroo, like, you're not going to win that battle. And of course, once I got my head around that, I realized they were right. And that was a big pivot in our business and totally changed the unit economics of how we were monetizing and what the business looked like. But again, that was something that came through, I would say, in the first 6 weeks of going through the Founder Institute. For me as well, in the end, and guys, also cut me off if I ramble on too long for time, or just give me a minute warning. But as Ben mentioned, one of the other really interesting things, and I'm not sure if there is another example of this in the Founder Institute, Ben, but I actually got my co-founder through the Founder Institute, but he was in there in their capacity as a mentor. So one of the mentors, a guy called Timo Kugler, we got on really well throughout the program. At the end, I asked him to sit on my board of advisors. He then decided to invest in the company when we did our pre-seed round. He then came in as kind of COO in residence 2-3 days a week because he, rightly identified we needed help with operational scaling, and that was his area of expertise. And then he came in full-time as a full-time co-founder shortly thereafter. So it was a unique one, I think. Ben, has that happened before or since?
There has been. Evan Wong, co-founder in the form of Paul Wenk, who was a mentor, and he invested and also rolled his sleeves up and became their first chief sales / revenue officer.
Brilliant. And you know what? It's fantastic in that, again, the caliber of mentors, and all the guys on this call will know, are typically so strong. Like, these are really hard people to get a hold of, at the best of times. So to get that access to them for the 12-week period and build that relationship, and then have the opportunity potentially to either get them on your board of advisors or even, potentially more involved later, it is phenomenal. And another thing I think I did quite well, and I'm not saying I've done a lot of things well, but one that I did do well was building out a board of advisors. And for me as a solo founder, first-time founder, that was particularly important because, again, I think one of the important things you got to do as a first-time entrepreneur is put your hand up and accept that you don't know everything, and there's certain things that you're just not an expert in, and that other people know more about you than you do. And being able to take constructive feedback, no egos involved, just ask people to tell them, honestly, what do you think and how would you improve this? And then ultimately it's your call whether you take the advice or not. But again, getting good advice from smart people and at least considering their point of view, even if you don't necessarily agree, it's something I've always really believed in. And when we do our board of advisor meetings, I literally will ask people in the room to play devil's advocate, even if they don't agree with what they're arguing. Just stress test the hypothesis, make an argument, and make me validate it at a minimum. I think that's something that has worked very well for me so far, and would recommend that approach to the people on this call as well. I suppose the next step post graduating, building the board of advisors and all that stuff, was raising a pre-seed round. That was tough. There's no two ways about it. Raising your first round of capital is tricky. You're an unknown entity most of the time. Especially if you're a first-time founder, you don't really have a past exit or something to speak to. And understandably, investors are always a bit more skeptical at that point. But there is still a lot of people out there who invest at that stage. I think the really important thing is to be very smart and targeted about how you speak, who you speak to. I remember at one point we had most of our round raised. I think we had maybe a 200K check left, and we got on a call with Tiger Capital, and he very politely listened to us for 20 minutes and then was like, sounds great, guys, but like our minimum check size is 10 million US. And we were like, all right, probably not a great use of your time or our time, but good to connect, whatever. But the point being that a lot of the VCs, especially early stage, there are certain things they need to see. Like a lot of them need to see revenue. A lot of them need to see a product or traction. And if you don't have those things, a lot of the time it's not a good use of your time investing in pitching VCs that early. It can be worth reaching out to them and trying to build a relationship and getting feedback from them. But a lot of the VCs at the pre-stage round, in Australia at least, I found we were just too early. And that won't be everyone, but that was my experience. And so we ended up getting Antler ended up being our lead investor, not through their accelerator program, but they do have a sidecar fund that invests in early stage startups at pre-seed stage as well. So they invested in us. I do know that people have had success going through that program as well. I know StartMate also give people cash to go through their accelerator program. So the accelerators at early stage are one avenue post Founder Institute. But high net worths and angels, especially if they resonate with your problem, is where we had the most success. And I would say probably 70% of our pre-seed round we filled that way. That was my experience. It won't be the same for everyone, and it really does depend on your company. But that was my finding anyway. Really quickly hitting then, next was, I suppose, building a team. Our team is currently 16 people, 8 onshore, 8 offshore. And we do have some pretty high caliber people in there, but I suppose the advice I was given initially, and it sounds a bit cutthroat, but I think it probably is still the way you need to approach these things, is to, hire slow and be careful, but fire fast if it doesn't work. And that's kind of US advice, because employment laws are a lot different over there. But the point really there is that your early hires are so important, and they really will mold the team. And it's when you hire anyone from off the back of a few interviews, you're taking a gamble. And thankfully for us, I would say the majority of them have worked out. There was 1 or 2 early that didn't, and mutually, we parted ways. But, if you quickly realize something isn't working or someone isn't a good fit, you're better cut the tie early and as painlessly as possible, then continue down with something that in your gut isn't going to work out. That's the advice I was given, and it's worked for us so far, although thankfully there's only been 1 or 2 examples where it hasn't worked out. But again, can be different for everyone. Another thing, and I'm sure the Founder Institute guys probably drill this into you throughout the program, I know they did for me, but test really is the key at early stage. Test with product, with price, with marketing, with everything. Test everything, test often, ship often, get feedback, and reiterate. You could spend months and months and months and years trying to perfect something and get it absolutely right, only to get feedback that you were gone completely down the wrong track. I think you're much better off build your MVP, get feedback quickly, and go from there and iterate from there, as opposed to sitting on something until you're confident is absolutely perfect. One of the mistakes I made, if I had it over, was I built an app day one when I probably, if I had it over, would have just built a website or a no code product. At the moment, we're raising a seed round. That's why I'm in the US. There's a lot of doom and gloom in the market out there around raising, generally speaking. I would say that pre-seed and seed, which is where you guys and I'm at, is probably the best place you could possibly be right now if you're looking to raise funds. Later stage companies are really struggling. Series B, C, D, and that's just because of the crazy vals that a lot of them raised at previously. Seed and early stage, there's still a lot of capital. There's a lot of capital in Australia. There's a lot of capital in the US. Deal flow has decreased a little bit, but it's still out there. So my advice on that is ignore a lot of the doom and gloom. there is definitely a lot of capital out there. Just beware that it can take a bit longer to get rounds over the line at the moment. That's at least been my experience. The R&D tax incentive is the best thing ever. It's literally free money. I recommend, if you're not already across it, getting across it and making sure that as much relevant expenditure is captured by that, because it's literally a 42% tax rebate. It's fantastic. Also, as you go on, building relationships with the likes of Investment New South Wales or Victoria or wherever you guys are, and Austrade is really valuable. I came through the Austrade landing pad program as a company ready to expand into the US. I have free offices with them in San Francisco. They opened their black book of contacts to me across the country, invitations to a lot of events and conferences and all sorts of things. It's been fantastic. So if and when you start looking at expanding outside of Australia, they're a great asset, and I would recommend building relationships with them early. The network through the Founder Institute has also been really, really helpful. Only in the last few weeks, I've been caught up with Ben and Chris around their network and the Founder Institute network globally. A lot of really, really good people. My advice is pick out the people, or try and identify the people that you think are most valuable to you, and then ask for the intros to them with a reason, as opposed to just blindly asking for intros to anyone. Do a little bit of due diligence on it and have a strategic ask. And I think the beauty with the Founder Institute is they have always been, throughout the process, post-graduation, whenever I've asked for help, it has always been there. But ultimately, it's on you guys to maintain the relationship and ask when you need it. And that is the beauty of startup culture. People want to help and give back, especially if they've had success or have advice that they think they can impart. But ultimately, it's on you, the founders, to maintain those relationships and keep in touch. Go to the events, in the next year or two, potentially offer to mentor or give advice to some of the new guys coming through. That's just the culture. And I think the way startup world works, which I love personally. Last point, and I'll let you go then. Entrepreneurship is hard. I'm sure you have all figured that out already if you hadn't beforehand. There will be a lot of no's. There will be a lot more no's than yeses, in my experience. But you got to have a thick skin. You got to be able to take constructive feedback. I would say that our most valuable meetings net have been the meetings where we've got no's. We've literally pivoted the business based off the no that we got from an investor who, when we went back 2 months later, invested, because we took that wasn't the reason we went back. We just went back to fill them in on and thank them for their advice. And they just happened to invest off the back of that. But again, point being, sometimes the no's are more important and more valuable than the yes. And in closing, you also got to enjoy the good moments and the wins. This and tonight for you guys is an example of one of those. Graduating is no mean feat. I can see there's 6 of you, which suggests to me that, there was probably a good few dropouts along the way. It was the same in ours. I think we had 8 or 9 out of nearly 40 at the start. So well done and congratulations from getting through it. And make sure you do enjoy these wins, because it's important. You can't always be focused on the next thing. So well done, guys, and hope I didn't go on too long.
Thank you for your continued support of the Founder Institute. I agree with your comment about, if you are a founder, ask. And if someone doesn't respond to you, don't take it personally. They've probably got a busy email box. Hit them up again. It's okay, because most people do want to help you. And one of the people who has helped me, along with many founders I know, is Rebecca Dooley. And a special shout out to Rebecca, who is a senior associate at the well-known Australian law firm Addisons, who has been helping Founder Institute folks for a number of years. She has delivered a number of legal panels for us and been the voice of legal reason, being very fair about when to get a lawyer super involved in something and when not to. So thank you, Rebecca, for your support. Also, shout out and thanks to our associates, to Alla, Gianni, Lockie and Josh, who have been working behind the scenes to support the current program. Thank you for your efforts. And of course, my fellow co-directors in Australia, New Zealand, Phoebe Zhang, Paul Krajewski and Chris Clark. They've been wonderful at working with mentors, working with founders and making things happen. Now, I asked before, where does the Founder Institute fit in? And here is where it fits in. You might be interested in learning about startup life, the startup world. You might be thinking about going to a full-time accelerator. You might be dreaming of receiving venture capital from venture capital firms who want to accelerate your growth. Well, Founder Institute is what we would call a pre-seed accelerator that helps founders and teams get initial traction and prepare for launching their product on a broader stage. So if you're wanting to get pre-seed funding, the Founder Institute is for you. Now, you can see that we are the #1 place, literally, in the world to turn ideas into fundable startups and those startups into global businesses, because you can see the number of alumni, and Dylan is one of those 6,000 plus. The total value of Founder Institute companies now exceeds $25 billion. It's a fair chunk of money. We're fortunate to have many founders who've benefited from mentors. And here's what Jason Calacanis from Twist says: the Founder Institute is the most raw street program out there for startups. We want you to get honest feedback. And we have 2 tracks. Our first track is what's called the launch track, for those people who are tossing up between, do I pursue idea A or idea B? And through this program, you learn to pitch, you learn to get your investor due diligence ready, you learn to get your advisory board happening, and of course, you learn to get all of the other things, such as a financial model, marketing plan, etc., watertight. For founders who have honed in on a particular product and are wondering, do I go down with product variation A or product variation B because I've already got product in market? We have what's called the growth track. So therefore, founders who are a little bit ahead, and we have a slightly different focus for them, but it's still around the same objective, ensuring that they're able to accelerate through those stages, making progress so that they're attractive to their customers, which means that they'll be attractive, especially if they wish to seek funding. Now, what we do at the Founder Institute is simple. We find great people, we support them, we have structure, and we give them even more support after they finish our core program. Now, you might be wondering, when does our next group start? Well, I'm pleased you're interested. We have our next cohort, which begins on the 1st of August. So our early deadline for admissions, that means you get an opportunity to spend a bit more time with us, is the 25th of June. So it's coming up very shortly. And then we have our final deadline of applications, which is on the 13th of July. We have our orientation running on the 1st of August. So if you're interested, please hit Paul up, please hit me up. We'd be delighted to learn more about your business and how Founder Institute might be of benefit to you. Now, I'm going to turn to Lydia, who is one of the founders who has just taken part in the program, and she's going to be talking to us on behalf of all the founders. Good evening, Lydia, and congratulations again.
Good evening, Benjamin. Thank you for that. It is a pleasure to be able to talk to everybody on behalf of our cohort. I thought I'd just talk really quickly to you all about the power of authenticity. Now, authenticity means different things to different people. What is it? I found some people on the internet that I thought represented authenticity pretty well. The first one probably isn't a surprise, being Brené Brown, the queen of vulnerability. If you haven't read her book, Daring Greatly, highly recommend it. Pretty life-changing stuff. The second master of authenticity I felt was Ricky Gervais. He is unapologetically honest in an amazing way, and his Golden Globe speeches will definitely go down in history. And the third person I thought really mastered authenticity was this guy, who is at Paris Fashion Week, strutting his stuff, and obviously lives without fear of criticism. Much respect to him. And Brené says that authenticity is a collection of choices. The choice to show up, to be honest, and to let our true selves be seen. in my own life, authenticity wasn't always something I valued. It wasn't even something I practiced. And as a young one, I was kind of always taught that my highest calling would be to pursue peace, peace with people, especially my family, which isn't anything wrong with that, but peace at any cost does come at a cost. And the cost to me was actually my own thoughts and opinions, basically. So by the time I was 18, and here is a photo of me literally when I was 18, kind of forgetting who I was and forgetting how to be me. Fast forward a few more years, and becoming a parent was when I really started to turn over a new leaf, because for the first time ever, I had people who were looking to me to learn how to live. And I just wasn't actually ready for that. So I wanted better for my kids. So I sought help. And the first thing I was told was, you got to start living more authentically. You got to start being true to your values and beliefs. And the first place to start was, why don't you start with your family? They may not like it. Just be aware, I was told. And it was true. There was quite a few disagreements about my new expression of myself, and here is what I am, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, I did have to make a decision to choose between living authentically, being myself and true to my values, or keeping some relationships. And so, as you guys know, when you do start to live authentically, there are some relationships that you do lose, I suppose, but you gain so much more. Now, living authentically isn't just important for healthy relationships. Obviously, it's extremely important for founders and people who go down the path of entrepreneurship. It's important for creating genuine connections with partners, for challenging the status quo, making sure that you continue to innovate. And I think the most important one of all is that it gives us our why, which is what drives us and what keeps us going through those really tough times. As founders about to embark on our journey, my wish for all of us is to ask ourselves, how far can we go if we let go of fear altogether and start living authentically, being true to ourselves and our values? I'm sure amazing things will happen.
Appreciate you sharing of yourself there. I think for many founders, including myself, the Founder Institute has been a place where things have changed, where certain ideas have clicked, where I've learned from other mentors, and I've been able to bring that into my everyday life, not just my business life, but my personal life. So thank you very much for sharing. We are now about to hear from more founders, and I can see a gentleman who is raring to go. Mina Abood, over to you, Mina.
So hi everyone, I'm Mina from Refer Central. Consumers trust word of mouth referrals above all else when seeking out new services or products. We're all happy to make referrals because we want to help, and we like that it makes us feel good. Word of mouth referrals are also critical for the sustainability of service businesses. However, after interviewing over 50 owner operators, I found that not a single one of them were asking consumers for referrals, not even from the most satisfied of consumers. The lack of information about referrals, given that they happen offline, the discomfort with asking, and concerns about appearing salesy were their primary reasons. Instead, they relied on providing the highest quality service to build a strong brand and invested in paid advertising to grow their business. A pattern of behavior I'm familiar with because I've done the same thing for the last 10 years as an owner-operator myself. The solution to this is a digital mechanism that both incentivizes and rewards referrals, giving something for consumers that's more than just a good feeling, and giving service providers the tools to trace referral activity to then be able to know how to comfortably encourage more referrals. Refer Central is this mechanism, and our rewards program seamlessly integrates into the referral activity that's happening offline every day and incentivizes new referrals. Our double-sided reward program rewards both the consumer making the referral and the consumer receiving the referral. And our rewards are unique and effectively like airline miles. You can earn them by referring to one service provider and redeem them with any participating service provider. This one-to-many model means that incentivized referrals are now unlocked for low frequency of repeat purchase service businesses, for example, a painter. Earlier this year, we decided to trial this concept in our dental practice. And during the trial, 99% of the patients that we pitched the program to opted in. And for every 12 that opted in, we received an immediate referral. Referred in customers were much higher quality than those sourced from other channels, in that they had a 0% cancellation rate, which was heavily linked to that double-sided reward program structure. They generated more revenue per customer and were considerably cheaper to acquire. Since then, I've waitlisted 20 businesses who are excited by Refer Central and have kicked off a pilot with 5 of those businesses, trialing out our first product, building out and refining some processes, and observing both consumer and business behavior. I've also been able to assemble a team of highly reputable and capable advisors, all of whom have been attracted to Refer Central's potential. As for me, I'm the solo founder of Refer Central, and I'm very passionate about solving this problem, because over the years, I've invested a small fortune in growing my businesses with the likes of Google, Facebook, and other forms of marketing. And I'd much rather use those funds to reward my most loyal customers or support other local businesses. Refer Central is a subscription-based SaaS, and $100 per month was a reasonable level for the businesses I spoke with, subject to their industry or level of referral activity. In terms of how we're thinking about go-to-market, initially we'll have a hyper-local focus. We'll be deploying the product in a few industry verticals, and given the limited resources, we'll be deploying some pretty basic sales tactics like door knocking or leveraging personal networks. As we start to think about expansion and national and international expansions, some more scalable, repeatable strategies will be deployed. Unique to Refer Central is our growth flywheel. And what that means is that consumers have to join the platform in order to earn or make a referral. So consumers will attract consumers, which in turn will attract businesses, which in turn attracts more consumers. And that flywheel continues to spin as we grow. Our target customers are small owner-operated service businesses in industries that are highly reliant on referrals to sustain them. And in Australia, there's roughly around 200,000 businesses that fit that profile, and there are many millions more globally. Looking out at the market, competition does exist. However, they typically focus on larger corporates or in industries outside the services sector, and none of them have that one-to-many relationship of their rewards, because they're typically white label type products that sit behind the consumer brand. Finally, I'm asking for some resources and assistance with my prototype and pilot. I'm always looking for introductions to service businesses who might be interested in joining our pilot or our waitlist. And if any of you out there are interested to be involved in Refer Central, my contact details are listed there. Please feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mina. Very much appreciate your participation in the program, your energy and your presentation then. Someone else whose energy was very clear to me when I spoke with her on the phone before she joined the program is a lovely person called Malka Kunshnabel, and she is up next. Over to you, Malka.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Ben. Today I'm presenting Limbo. So Limbo is a recruitment app that bridges the generational gap in the way employers and candidates connect for a better job match. So it's the bite-sized content from TikTok, the fast and easy swipe of Tinder, and recruitment marketplace of LinkedIn combined to create a recruitment app that I have called Limbo. The problem is simple. There is a generational gap in the way we recruit. I like to break this down into 2 main concepts. First of all, we absorb information differently now, which means our attention spans are shorter and we don't have time for a lot of text on a screen. The second issue is that we value equality now and diversity, which translates to liking people that are authentically themselves, and also means we're more inclusive. So when you think about the way we recruit, it's no surprise that there's a gap in the market, when our main filter is a resume. If you think about a resume, it's a structured page full of text that does not allow you to showcase who you are. So it's not surprising that the average time recruiters and managers spend reading a resume is a mere 7 seconds, nor that candidates are using ChatGPT to produce their resumes. Limbo is closing that generational gap by updating the way we communicate when we recruit. It allows both candidates and employers to showcase themselves, bringing the authenticity to the process. This essentially means that we get to showcase our humanity. And since everyone is different, you have a short video to showcase yourself. So for example, you can do it audio based, or you can do a video of yourself talking about what you'd like to do, or in the case of an employer, your job, the job that you are advertising. This bite-sized information is then really easy to process on the other end, and you get to make a judgment on more than skills. So you get to make a judgment on what I like to call the soft skills. So the skills that can't be taught, like passion, interests, and motivators. In the more developed stages, we see the app filtering based on non-negotiable skills like willingness to relocate somewhere, availability, and interests. This two-way marketplace allows both employers and candidates to easily show interest on each other, but only becoming a match when both sides are interested, at which point employers can choose to make contact or ask for more information. Why now? So I've interviewed over 100 people throughout the Founder Institute program and have found that the young workforce coming out of school and university is somewhat ignoring the recruitment process, relying on networks and the companies that they know of. And meanwhile, the companies are struggling to find and engage with candidates because the process has become a big barrier. Hence, taking an average of 82 days to fill a position, and most employers say that their options are really slim. So in Limbo so far, we have acquired funding to get established, and we were invited to pitch on stage in front of 2,000 people, featuring in the places you can see on the slide. The MVP is underway, and we've already pivoted from some of the tests we have run, like, for example, realizing that although short videos sound ideal as information to consume, people need more examples and an alternative to showing just their face. We've been invited to careers days and expos and have been working with key mentors and advisors on a strategy as we test with an actual app. So our challenge is to find the right product market fit that achieves a better recruiting experience for both end users. The revenue model long-term has been based on a subscription model where employers pay, keeping it below Seek advertising and monthly and HR recruiters. So Limbo would need, in this instance, 240 paying employers to make $1 million in revenue if we're following that theory. However, this is all still in testing phase and will be tested along with the MVP app that we will launch soon. Limbo would be competing with recruiters like Rimfire Resources, who currently rely on their network to source candidates. They are a service-driven provider and very expensive. Seekint is another major competitor, which holds majority of the market share. The recruitment process is mass-driven and has been referred to most interviewed candidates as clunky and non-responsive. There's been a few recently launched companies, such as WorkReal and GetAhead, that have similar approaches to Limbo and have shown initial success. However, their focus has been mainly on hospitality and retail type of jobs where a degree is not necessary. Limbo is really honing in on graduates and uni students looking for a connection to industry with little to no career-focused experience. Currently, we're three main team members with an advisor, myself, and a designer. We're also building an advisory board. We've applied for a $50,000 LaunchFit grant and are in the running for a $25,000 pro bono marketing offering. Our goal for the next 6 months is to establish a working model and achieve the first few successful matches. So really what we're looking for is anybody who has connections to universities or businesses recruiting for entry-level jobs. We'd love to have a chat, or anybody whose this idea has tickled them fancy and would like to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go Limbo. We're now going to hear from Raheen. Raheen has been working on a very interesting business, and I'd like to now turn it over to him. Congratulations, Raheen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raheen. I'm the CEO of Pandametrics. So Pandametrics is a Chinese social media monitoring platform predominantly tailored for non-Chinese speaking users. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? As China is one of the world's biggest markets, and it's important to many brands, big or small. However, the digital landscape that you see is very unique. It's not something that a lot of us are, used to seeing it. I've been using it for the last 10 years, but I don't think everybody uses it. There are language barriers, and of course, there is access data is limited. So what we do is we come and help you to not only understand these platforms, but we also give you the data to understand 1 billion consumers. So what we have developed is a platform which monitors social media conversations that happen across the Chinese social media network. And this is predominantly to help B2B and B2C brands so that they understand their customers, gain actionable insights so that they can then create the marketing strategies. Currently, we provide all this information in a very user-friendly dashboard, predominantly geared towards non-Chinese speaking audience. Are we the only ones doing this in the market? The answer is no. There are existing players in the space. If you look into the left, they're predominantly Chinese platforms who are there. These Chinese platforms cater to the Chinese audience. So unless you have a WeChat ID, a Chinese phone number, and pay in RMB, you won't be able to use these platforms. But even if you get somebody else to do it for you, the other challenge is going to be the user interface. It's quite cumbersome, quite clunky, but most importantly, is the design. Everything that's in Chinese context, which is good, is red, and everything that's bad is green. And that becomes a challenge for a lot of people on this side of the world. And at the same time, we do have some larger players, but they've predominantly grown through acquisition. So we do see that there's a huge opportunity. When we talk about the size of the market, it's fairly large. So we know that, there is a huge opportunity that's out there, and even the largest player just has 1% of the market. So what our focus is going to be to go after global brands and Western companies who are already in the market and looking to scale up their presence in the market. What's our business model? Our business model is a SaaS-based and a usage-based. So SaaS comes in at $150, which gives you X number of usage credits, which you use to then scale up. If you need more, you have the ability to buy it. And in addition, we'll be also offering professional services and reporting services, which are predominantly requested by a lot of market research firms that use us. And in addition, in our product roadmap, we do plan to add in some other things like Chinese influencer recommendation engine, as well as trying to get you Chinese e-commerce data. Our go-to-market strategy is fairly developed well. We are predominantly focused on inbound and outbound. So everything what we're going to do is run digitally, predominantly for the first 6 months, 12 months, before we jump into offline mode. And the other thing we are focusing on is to try and drive partnerships across the agency network so that we can try and get more clientele that way. In terms of clients, we do have some pretty known companies who are using us right now. So the likes of FedEx, LG, Investment NSW, and so on and so forth. Why are we the perfect team for this? So me and my co-founder have been successfully running a digital agency for the last 10 years where we've been helping global brands. So we do understand the market. We do understand the customer pain points. Hence, one of the ideas that came up over the years was to develop a product like Pandamatrix, which has helped us to really scale up. Currently, Pandamatrix is revenue generating. We are making money and we look to scale up. So at this stage, we're looking to raise our money so that we can scale up in the next 4 years, aim to get to $4 million to $5 million revenue in ARR, and then make a decision, either we scale up or we exit. In terms of our ask right now, we're looking to raise $500,000 so that we can invest in product and marketing. And then that'll be used to develop further enhancement in our product offering, but also to add in more capabilities in our team. And thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to always answer them, or you can always go to our website and check out the platform itself. Thanks a lot for listening, guys.
With a man who has a very storied career, who has experience across organizations, both large and small. And our second keynote speaker today is Harshu Deshpandani. Harshu, welcome.
What I might do is I might just recap kind of 2 of my experiences, which might be quite relevant for you guys. So I'm going to start off with my most recent experience, which is Google. So I'm quite new to Google. I started at the start of this year in January, pretty much in a role where I do kind of consulting for Google's clients in kind of startup or scale up ecosystem, and predominantly working for looking at kind of digital native businesses. So looking at how can digital native businesses really help grow both their client base, both from a technology standpoint as well as from a market standpoint. And I'll probably give you a few observations because I do have the kind of pleasure of being able to talk to a lot of startups and scale ups on a daily basis. And some interesting data points that I kind of see all the time. One of the challenges I see always is startups that have kind of been running for a year or two. They would have been on some sort of startup credits program from a cloud provider, and they've gone off and made some technology decisions at the very early days, which are predominantly based around the technology stack that they knew at the time, right? So there's always this kind of thought in their mind around trying to grow as fast as possible, trying to get to working code that then gets you to a product that you can showcase or demonstrate. And then very soon you get pre-seed funding, then you get seed funding, and you're often running off to the races. And one of the biggest challenges we see is some of those technology decisions that you made at the very start then come back and really start to hurt you later on, because you've built up all this tech debt on your platform. It's very hard for you to transform and translate, and no one gives you money to ever get rid of that tech debt. And what that does is that really hamstrings your ability to grow that business and to scale it based on what those aspirations for the growth were. And so what I'd kind of suggest is really at the very start, I know it seems very easy to go and pick the tools and technologies that you're most familiar with because you want to get up there and start building. But those technology choices at the very beginning will actually have some pretty broad ramifications in the future. So taking some time around picking the right tools and platforms, looking at what should you build versus buy versus borrow as technology choices, those become really important, not just at the very end of your journey, but also at the very start. And those choices are very hard to unravel later on. So that's where I'd start. The second thing around, if you do get into a bind and you've built out something, one of the great things that a lot of the cloud providers will do, and Google is just one of them, is they actually give you credits and capability to be able to transform your application. So if you build your platform stack in such a way that it is able to be moved across between cloud providers, and it's fairly agnostic, what you can do is actually hop from one provider to another provider. Now, I wouldn't say this as a with my Google hat on, but generally what you can do is you can use that money to effectively then transform your application as part of that transformation, right? So if you do get stuck and you still need to remove a lot of tech debt, you can effectively go off and try and port your platform onto another cloud provider and restart your cloud credits. Now, I wouldn't say this is a great idea because, again, migration has a cost to it, as an opportunity cost, both for your business, all your developers. There's disruption of the business, but it is a kind of last-ditch effort or an approach. So really, I think the key thing to focus on really is at the very start, make those right decisions. There are pros and cons behind choosing different technology choices, even cloud providers for that matter. Different cloud providers are better suited for different types of products and businesses. And start to look at what the partnerships they may be able to bring to you as well, right? So a lot of the cloud providers have associated products and marketplace. A lot of those things are kind of your multipliers, and those partnerships will be quite useful in the long run, right? So partnering with the right cloud provider or technologies on the side will be quite helpful. The second bit of story I'll probably tell you is from my experience just before Google, which is, again, quite relevant. It's actually helped launch a business in Australia just before the pandemic. So I kind of started in January 2020. And it was a professional services business. So started from scratch. I was employee number one, helping bring that business into Australia. And then in March 2020, we had the pandemic and we had a bit of an oh shit moment. What's going to happen? Are we going to be able to survive? There were kind of 3-4 of us at the time. And it was pretty much professional services businesses kind of just ground to a halt. There was no work around anywhere. We kind of did a bit of a pivot in terms of the types of customers and clients we target. And then we started growing from there. So luckily for us, professional services grew quite significantly through the pandemic, and we grew from 0 to about 300 people in just under 2.5 years on the back of a lot of great growth from COVID. But one of the kind of two big lessons learned out of that kind of growth story, and it was an amazing growth story. At one point in time, we were hiring kind of 10 people in a month. It was a pretty significant growth. But one of the things I realized is what we should have done at that point, at a certain point in time, was actually pause our growth and actually consolidated the number of people that were in our team. So what did happen is I had two bites of the cherry looking at this. One is when the entire business grew from 0 to 70. And at about the 70 person mark, I knew everyone. I knew everyone's story. I knew everyone on the, as I passed through the corridors, I knew exactly what was happening on the ground with everyone. And then somewhere beyond 70, so when we got to 70 to 75, I suddenly stopped, trying to work out who everyone was. I just couldn't remember everyone, right? And what didn't just happen for the first 70 employees, it just started happening more organically. And the second time around, when the overall business grew and there were two of us as partners, my portion of the business grew from 0 to 70, same thing happened again. I knew everyone at that point in time. And then beyond that, it was very hard to keep track of everyone. I think the kind of biggest mistake or regret that I have is not kind of pausing at that kind of 70 or 50 to 70 magic mark and looking at some of the growing pains that you have. It might be things like career development plans for your employees, your leadership structure, and making sure your leaders are really well connected and it's a strong team where there's no infighting and there's no problems and challenges, those types of things, and they get to really know each other. The way I always described this to my leadership team at the time was, if you have a circle and you stack hands, if you add one person to that circle, it's great. Everyone kind of shifts around and, you kind of reorganize yourself into a circle. You start throwing 2 or 3 people into that circle and everyone's kind of shifts around and that circle no longer forms as a circle, right? And you throw more people in while it's not a circle and becomes a square, a rectangle, or whatever other shapes, right? Is you kind of just lose that structure. And so as much as you can go for growth and people will encourage you as soon as you get money and, you get, go for scale. I think the biggest challenge you'll find is if you don't kind of pay attention to those very, very kind of early inflection points when things aren't working well, it's okay to take a pause, right? And to say no to growth. Growth will always be there, but taking care of those inflection points and dealing those with care, even if you take a 2 or 3 month pause, in the grand scheme of things, is not going to make a difference. I think for me, those were kind of the 2 big lessons learned. And then the second bit of the kind of journey out of that was the key one there was around helping, even if you might be a small team, you might start off with kind of 4 or 5 of you. As soon as you get to about 10, and you get kind of people that are outside of that founder circle coming in, a lot of those folks still want career development of sorts, right? They're not as bought into the business as you are. They might be, they might still get some level of equity, but they're there for the experience and the career development aspect. And so we spend a bit of time, quite a bit of early time, around creating learning and development plans for our employees across the board, right? These weren't crazy learning and development plans. I've come from kind of big consulting companies like Accenture, which have very formal structures. We just created a 1-pager, right? It was a 1-pager about me. Here's where I want to grow. Here's what I want to do. Here's my purpose in life, those types of things, right? Very kind of high level. But we set those as kind of open and transparent, visible to everyone. Everyone knew what those were. And those were really, great foundational elements for us to grow that team. As new team members came in, they could all look at, the other team members' plans, and we could kind of all learn and grow together. And that was really important for us. And that became a real foundational element that we just continued to scale. So even though we went to kind of 70, 150, 300 people, we used those 1-pages. And so me as a leader sitting across kind of 150 person team, I could see anyone's development plan at any point in time and see what their goals were. And those worked really well for us. So I think, as much as people say, hey, there's a lot of things that may not apply at the kind of startup end of the spectrum, there are some things that I think are still valuable enough to set up very early, even if they're very lightweight, and you can kind of scale from there. That would be kind of my two or three key takeaways.
Appreciate that feedback, especially from someone with that software engineering background around the transportability of your application from one provider to another, and also thinking about that number 70 in terms of the staff and how the dynamic even changes beyond 10 and then at 70, and ensuring that people have those career development plans. Over to you, Lydia.
Hi, my name is Lydia. As you know, my company is called Nomi, and we are a memory keepsake app. Inspired by my children, the Nomi app is designed to help millennial parents seamlessly record and enjoy precious family memories. After becoming a parent, I needed a place to save my favorite photos, milestones, and journal articles. But not finding this, I started asking other parents, originally just thinking it was me with the problem. However, I did quickly realize that all of us were basically struggling with the same issues around saving our memories. Since smartphones arrived in 2007, parents have started to capture every moment, which is fantastic, but that equates to around 3,000 photos a year. And unfortunately, after 10 years of technological advancement, organizing our photos has basically stayed the same difficulty. It's a lot of work. It's a heaping digital mess. Current competition exists like Tinybeans, which provide a nice space for sharing photos. However, when you have a mountain of content, more space isn't actually the answer. After 43 face-to-face interviews and analyzing data from hundreds of competitor reviews, the results are pretty clear that parents are kind of now, today, expecting automation to reduce manual effort. They want to be able to share the task equally between family members so that one person isn't carrying all the load. And they want something to give their kids. Here we are with our unique approach at how we're going to tackle this problem that parents are currently having. Because once I found out that everybody was having the same issue, I had this knowledge, I also felt compelled to do something about it. So I put together a team and we've developed an innovative approach to use guided activities that basically step parents through the entire process of memory creation so that no memories are lost. We have a vast collection of beautiful templates that parents can use to capture everything from happy family holidays to milestones, pulled together with a delightful, easy to use UX, but also to use personalization and prompts. So what the idea is that parents can open the app, they get told they get prompted what they can record. Our app remembers what's already been recorded so that parents have a stress-free experience where they don't really have to think much. There's low cognitive load. They can fast track their memory recording experience. The future for Nomi, we have a lot of plans. However, my biggest one and the one I'm most excited about is to be able to give instant access of memories for kids. Down the track, hopefully next year, we'd love to create a child profile and have kids be able to instantly interact with their own memories, especially because studies are showing that happy memory recall is excellent for your mental well-being. It's great for health. And anxiety is at an all-time high. Competition, we've got some amazing competitors that have been around for a long time. There's been a failure to notice the problem. The real problem behind memory sharing is not the space, it's the time it takes. It's extremely manual, it's very high workload, and what people want is just not another space to share photos. Nomi is hopefully going to achieve that. Our target market, we're going to start with millennial parents in Australia and New Zealand and segment that market into parents who are pregnant, expecting, who have a newborn, or who spend a lot of time traveling. And this is because these people stand to gain the most from an app like Nomi and spend the most time looking for a solution. We're going to use a hybrid subscription model with in-app purchases that'll give us a nice versatile revenue stream, but also allow us to cater to the different types of users that we're going to be having. We will have incentives like early adopter rates, free trials. We want to incentivize referrals, which will hopefully lower the cost of user acquisition over time, and offer nice things like that to keep our users engaged and alienate as little people as we possibly can to kind of grow virally. Our go-to-market strategy. How am I doing for time, by the way? Sorry. I feel like I've gone over.
One more. Can you wrap up in
okay. 1 more minute. Yep, got you. Go-to-market. We're going to focus heavily on creating important partnerships and go to the social media platforms where mums belong. I'm going to be heavily involved in community events in Brisbane. In the next 4 months, I'm really excited to launch our MVP, which will be a web app, and hopefully develop some real traction there. My team have over 40 years of combined experience, and we're super, super excited to see the way that Nomi can positively impact parents' experience. And I am looking to join and team up with Australian advisors who have expertise in commercialization and go-to-market strategies, and importantly, who are passionate about family.
I'm here to present about Travely. So like sometime back, like myself, I'm a technology guy, and I was having a chat with a travel expert friend of mine who's based in India. And like one common thing that we were discussing about was wellness actually. And like we were just thinking like, what's one thing that connects technology, travel, and wellness? And like then we were just thinking, we spent some time analyzing different such platforms and all. Then we tried to understand about the wellness tourism industry, because that's what was kind of connecting all these things. And like we also tried to analyze the spending pattern of such travelers and the future prospects in space. When we connected all these things together, that's how we actually brought up something called Travely. The wellness tourism industry is a $439 billion industry as part of the global 3.2 trillion global tourism industry, and it is growing at an annual rate of 12.6%. The best part about wellness tourism industry is like there are many platforms, yes, but like there's no platform which actually offers end-to-end solutions. When we look at the global wellness tourism, the best part about this one is that every country has something innovative, something different to offer. For example, in Australia, you have the surf and yoga retreats, and in India, you have the Ayurveda centers and all, and in Brazil you have like kind of thermal water parks, etc. So every country has something unique to offer, and like that's when we thought, okay, we should do something that will actually bring all these things together. So Travely is a wellness platform that brings together kind of rejuvenation, financial empowerment, and exclusive benefits. We have like a list of curated wellness experiences, and we are building this on a social networking model, which allows people to form groups and avail group discounts. We actually, the best part about Travely is we offer end-to-end service. Now that is the differentiator about Travely. There's no other platform which actually offers end-to-end services, like starting from wellness listings, then visa processing, ticket processing, accommodation, post-treatment care, etc. And like that's where we are trying to bring everything together. More importantly, we are building this product in such a way that it's compatible with medical tourism. Wellness tourism and medical tourism are slightly different, but we are technology focused, and we are trying to build this in such a way that it is compatible with medical tourism. As part of our analysis, we spoke to about 64 different retreat owners, 50 plus travel agents, and like 30 plus potential travelers. We understood that the retreat owners are not getting quality leads, and the travel agents are spending a lot of time and energy in various promotional stuff, etc. And there's like similarly, the travelers, they are spending a lot of time on planning for the trip, and they're relying on kind of visual information, which might sometimes be misleading. So like what does Travely offer? When we look at all these problems, we kind of listed out all the opportunities. First thing is like we need to have a platform which actually offers the listing of the various services, treatments, etc. Then the cost of it, the comparison. This platform also offers visa and ticketing services. Then it actually helps with accommodation booking, documentation, translation services, because people are moving from one country to another country, and like more importantly, a patient review and feedback system. So we have built an app which actually takes care of all these things. There's a web platform as well, and there's an app which does all these things. So there's a social networking angle to it. And we have also built a CRM for travel agents, which can be used by them for actually facilitating all these things. How is Travely different? So like, as I said, it actually offers end-to-end solutions. And like more importantly, we are mobile first, we are cloud first, we are innovation first, and we are remote first. And like we are very serious about all these points. Whatever we are doing in terms of business development, we are making sure that these boxes are ticked whenever we are doing it. The other aspect is traditional wellness platforms. They actually allow wellness providers which can be booked by travelers. We are trying to flip it by bringing wellness provider closer to the travelers' cities. That's an innovative thing that we are trying to do. There are definitely some platforms in the market. There's book yoga retreats, book retreats, etc., which do something similar. If you look at it, the kind of listings they have, these are supremely priced, and like that shows the size of the market actually. But we are offering end-to-end services. That's where is our differentiator. This is our revenue stream. The short term is through affiliate marketing, but long term, we really are looking at commission-based booking. This is our team. It's a combination of travel experts plus healthcare experts, etc. And this is a part to growth. We hope to get in touch with providers across different countries and actually have probably thousands of listings in the next probably an year or so. We are looking for 200K seed capital in exchange for 5% equity, with which we are going to register a business, which we have already done and built the website, app, and other services actually.
Thank you very much, Shabaram. Great to hear from you, and congratulations again. I have one parting piece of feedback, and that is some statistics that I was able to go through when I caught up with one of the founders of the Founder Institute in Silicon Valley a couple of weeks ago. And I asked Deo, what are some of the hallmarks of founders who are successful? And what he shared with me is that when you have a look at the 6,000 alum, those who are most successful have been able to generate speed out of the gate. So I know it has been a marathon the last 3 months at perhaps a sprint pace. And I understand the desire and the need to take a deep breath and to rest and recuperate. So that's important. But might I encourage you, in the words of Adeo, to get speed out of the gate, because the faster you're able to talk to customers, the faster you're able to make sales, the faster you're able to learn, the faster you're able to iterate, the faster you're able to perhaps fire the people who aren't working out, but the faster you'll be able to make that progress. And it's a competitive market out there, and everyone obviously needs to pace themselves appropriately. But to me, that was a real encouragement, not only for myself, but something that I'm sharing with founders to not dawdle. Well, with that said, I want to thank everyone for being part of the program. I want to thank everyone for being part of tonight.